Hi, everybody. Andrew Champagne here alongside JD Fox for this week's edition of Champagne and JD. If you've seen our stuff and you like what we do, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down at the bottom of this video. This week, we've got a very special guest, a guy that merits no introduction, but we're going to give him one anyway because, JD, that's just the kind of guys we are. He is currently the track announcer over at Pleasanton. You may have heard him earlier this winter at Sam Houston and earlier in his career at a lot of different places. One of the best track announcers in the business and a darn good guy. Really happy he's back up here in Northern California. Chris Griffin. Chris, thanks for stopping by the show, man.
Man, I owed you a 20. I think I owe you a 50 after that introduction.
Nice. We're going to get that up to 100 by the time this is done. And, you know, if we could somehow wind up making it so where JD owes me $50 too, that'd be great.
No, it's a pleasure, man. It's good to talk to you and had you up for the seminars. And we're not doing seminars, obviously, this season, but it's been an interesting journey. And, yeah, back in Pleasanton, and there's no fair, but there is racing, and we've got a lot of great things coming up. And we're excited for the next 5 weeks. Had a nice opening week, and here we are. We're back in California, and the road has taken us on an exciting journey in 2020, to say the least.
Exciting journey for sure, and we could go in depth about all the stuff that's been going on in California, but long story short, the Pleasanton Racing Office has done an exceptional job carving something together on fairly short notice. And before we go too much further, just want to give a shout out to everybody in that racing office. Not an easy thing to do at any track, let alone a track that is not just running their dates with no fair, but also picking up the dates that were run up at Sacramento. So a lot of last minute adjusting going on. Some of that stuff is a thankless job where if you do a good job, nobody notices. If you do a bad job, everybody notices. This is a case where the people in charge really know what they're doing, and they're doing their best to put on a really cool product for racing fans, not just in Northern California, but in simulcast land around the country. We'll dive into Saturday's Pick 4 in just a bit, but first, we've got some headlines, and JD, I've got a bone to pick with you.
Don't you always?
I do. You tried really, really hard to not have to do anything regarding the Belmont this week. You really tried, and I wouldn't let you, because as we've talked about a number of times, do you know what happens when you go against the law?
And as I always say, I have an impeccable record in challenging the law when that has happened in my life. But I know the point you're getting at. 'Tis the Law, just an absolutely dominant performance in the Belmont Stakes. I don't know how much more crow about 'Tis the Law I can eat on this podcast. I don't think there are crows left. I believe crows are an endangered species now at this point. But
I'm just
really
shoveling everything over to you here.
Yeah, just a really impressive performance. And, you know, who did he beat? We're not really sure still at this point. But, I mean, you can't fault that effort. You can't fault that performance. And I talked about this a lot on the ABR Live broadcast on Saturday after the race. I mean, you didn't even get close to the bottom of that horse. I mean, that was a glorified exhibition and now a very ambitious path of trying for a sweep of 4 races. I'm not going to try to name that. That's your job, Andrew. But talk a little bit about 'Tis the Law, Andrew, and take your victory lap here.
It's not necessarily a victory lap. Look, the horse was 4-5. I just enjoy giving JD a very hard time because he's trying very hard to find ways to go against 'Tis the Law. And as a handicapper, it's your job to try to find horses that might not necessarily present that ever-loving characteristic known as value. 'Tis the Law was by far the best horse on Saturday. I was watching that race and just watching it on my phone. At the 5/16 pole, Manny Franco did one of these, looking back under his arm. And when he did, I leaned over to my girlfriend who was watching next to me and I said, yep, that horse is gone. And he was. 'Tis the Law, a very strong horse in very capable hands. Shout out to Saratoga Stables, specifically fellow Ithaca College graduate Jack Knowlton, trainer Barkley Tagg, who is just a tremendous story, of course, best known for his work with Kentucky Derby and Preakness winner Funnyside, but a top quality horseman for many, many, many years on the New York, Florida, East Coast circuit. He's got another big horse in the form of 'Tis the Law. Up next for him, the Midsummer Derby, the Travers. This place right back here, Saratoga Racecourse, which opens up in a couple of weeks. And JD, we might be talking about that at some point sooner rather than later. Just saying. But the big news that came out on Thursday is that they will be running the Kentucky Oaks and the Kentucky Derby with fans at Churchill Downs. Now, Any question you can ask on this topic is going to be met with the answer of, we don't know. We don't know how many fans are going to be involved. We don't know what the procedure is going to be. We just know that there are procedures in place to have the Kentucky Oaks and the Kentucky Derby with fans. Chris, you know more about racetrack management than both of us. In your take, what are some of the challenges that they're going to have to deal with as this gets closer?
100,000 people presents a challenge. So I think, there's safety protocols and guidelines, and it goes across all sports, not just horse racing. To be able to pack the stands and to feel somewhat normal, I would say that it's going to take a lot of work. And if they feel like they can put a plan together and they can make it happen, then maybe that's what we do. I don't know. It's just a different time. 2020 is a different year. And it's here, and we'll just do what we can. I know as far as what I do, as far as showing up to work and whatnot, I wear a mask and I follow the guidelines, and you follow the protocols, and you take your temperature, and you have to do all the correct protocols. So whether we're able to transfer that over in September, who knows? But we don't know what's going to happen next week. We don't know what's going to happen next month, and we'll just see what happens. I would just say that it would be great to see packed grandstands, and I don't think that there's anyone that says they don't want that. We just have to trust that everyone makes the right decisions, and that's all I would say about that. Because currently we're not running with fans. We don't have spectators right now, and that's just the reality of the situation currently to keep everyone safe. And we'll just see what happens in September. It's not something that anybody can answer, and we'll just have to trust those folks that are making those decisions.
Yeah, I think the big thing, Andrew, here that people aren't thinking about, they're thinking about the track apron, and everybody can spread out on the track apron, and there's lots of seats everywhere and all these racetracks. But what people don't realize is a lot of times there's the areas that you actually get to go by the track are very narrow in some of these places. Some of these tracks, they're indoors, so you've got all these places where you want to fill the stands, but you have to have some sort of way for the fans to get there and to not be on top of each other while they do that and practice safe social distancing. So when we've got numbers of the tracks that are running now and they're very low head counts that they're allowing, that's a lot of the concern right now that people are still trying to figure out. So hopefully the folks at Churchill can take some cues from what's happening elsewhere in the country, learn a few things, talk to management at various tracks that do have fans on site right now, and make some conscious decisions for everybody involved, because I think the Belmont felt a little weird with the very limited people on site, including the owners not able to be there, but we also have to be safe in this time. So and speaking of the Kentucky Derby, we've got a points race, and we've got a juvenile champion running in that points race as Storm the Court returns in the Ohio Derby and at Thistledown on Saturday. And Andrew, the one question I'll pose to you here is, with all the changes and all the horses out of the Kentucky Derby, do you give Storm the Court another chance here if there's a good performance in the Ohio Derby as somebody that could contend in Kentucky?
There's no reason not to. If you have a horse that's a grade 1 winner around 2 turns, you run until the horse tells you it's not capable of running there. And it's not as though Storm the Court has run particularly badly to this point in the year. He's just run up against better horses. I think this is a really good spot for him. Derby points are on the line. Big purse at Thistledown. The one question mark, though, it's a big field, and a lot of things can go wrong when you're talking about a race with this kind of a field at Thistledown. It's a full field, which I believe is 14 horses and one also eligible, unless I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the other interesting thing is, with all of those horses at a track that doesn't generally have that big of races and that many horses, drawing the 13 hole was definitely an interesting spot for Storm the Court. One horse I want to give out, 30-1 morning line, the 12 Established for Michael Stidham. Yes, okay, this is a maiden, but both performances, the Fairgrounds and Churchill, have been impressive so far. I do think that this horse has a lot of speed and can compete with the speed of Storm the Court. Obviously, Storm the Court took the Breeders' Cup Juvenile wire to wire back at Santa Anita in November of last year. I don't think Storm the Court is going to be able to do that. So we'll see if there's a different tactical trip that Peter Urton can set up for Flavian Pratt and Storm the Court. But I know we weren't really prepared to talk much Ohio Derby. What we're here to talk about is Saturday's card at Pleasanton, and specifically the late pick 4 sequence, which is going to be a great sequence. And you got a little bit of everything in terms of condition and a little bit of everything in terms of distance. So, Andrew, just when you were looking at this sequence overall, did you have any general thoughts about it?
I like this sequence a lot. You mentioned a variety of conditions, which is obviously what every racing office aspires to do. What I like is it's a 4-race sequence, 3 two-turn dirt races. Don't see all of them. Really, this one can make out with a really nice score. There are some times where pick 4s come back a little bit chalky. This is not one of those sequences. This is hard. I usually try to keep my tickets under $40. I am at that exact $40 threshold with this sequence. It is not easy, and it's a good job by the racing secretary and the racing office to be able to put together a pretty darn good Saturday afternoon late pick 4 that starts in race number 6 at Pleasanton. Chris, your thoughts as we look at the field for race number 6, the morning line favorite, number 2, Indian Dancer, the second choice, a horse that I believe is the bane of the existence of a lot of announcers in the California circuit, Miss Indefatigable. I said it right.
Yeah, it's a toughie. Breaks from the rail. It looks like off the claim. So anything off the claim is Cedar Tamayo, one of the rising stars, I would say, in Northern California. Hasn't won over the dirt, but fits in the right spot now, stepping off of a $4,000 claim. Kyle Frey on the rail. We'll see if he can work out a trip. Maybe this is one of the ones that you kind of bet against, because I can definitely see that Kyle's going to send this one from the rail and try to get to the front. Try to find some early track position going into that first turn, and we'll see what those fractions end up being. For me, I went 3 deep on the ticket, and when we were talking about this and looking at it, but Tim McCanna, I think, really has 2 strong plays there in race number 6 as we get into that first leg. And so when we're looking at that first leg, I really like CIM Sweet. I think that's the first call for me at that 6-1 price. I went 6-1, right? Let me check that real quick. But yeah, 6-1. Frank Alvarado has been riding for Tim McCanna, and they've been connecting well. This horse has speed. I think can cruise kind of to the front, gets to the front end, has run at Pleasanton before, finished second, has 1 win over the dirt, has run the distance twice. You get McCanna's, main guy here in Northern California, seemingly, or not main guy, but somebody that he's really connected with Frank Alvarado. I think can kind of tactically show the pace. If this horse wasn't coming off of a long layoff, I probably would have gone shorter on a morning line, because it just seems like this one fits quite well, but you just don't know what you're going to get coming off of a layoff like that from 2019. So I like the 5 a lot as my top choice. I like it so much that I almost singled this horse in the pick 4 and then spread later on the card. But it's just tough for me to single horses that are coming off of long layoffs like this. But I think one of the 2 McCanna horses would be my top choice. The 1 is in there because Tamayo is very good off the claim. So I don't know if we're talking about all the legs here in the sequence, but I went with a more economic play, I guess you would say, of about $18 on my ticket. I know Andrew's over there with the caveman ticket. He threw out about $40 or something like that on his ticket. So we're looking forward to that. But it's a nice sequence. It's good to see some big fields in the sequence. It's nice to see if these larger field size with that 50-cent minimum in the pick 4. I think people will get involved, and I think people will enjoy it, and I think it's a good betting opportunity and hopefully make some money. On last Saturday, our late pick 4 paid over $3,600. There was a 35-1 shot in the closing leg. But I just think that races like that, payoffs like that, draw attention. It gets people paying attention to you and watching it, and we'll just see if you can catch one of those prices, because I think there are some favorites that could be beat in the sequence. If you can do that, then I think you're going to get that payoff that you're looking for.
That's for darn sure. And JD, you've got my ticket up, so I will go here. Chris, you mentioned it. There are beatable favorites in here, and I'm going against the 2 morning line favorites. Not that I disagree with the morning line man, who, Chris, by the way, if you ever run into him, please tell him I think he does a heck of a job. But I really like number 3, She Began Again. And Chris, I know that's a horse that's on your ticket. This is a filly that's won 4 of 14 dirt starts and has finished in the money 5 other times in those 14 starts. So the surface, not going to be a problem. I'm tossing the comeback race going short on a synthetic surface as something just went bang in the background. Not entirely sure what the heck that was, but if we wind up being under attack at some point, we'll just wing it. This is live to tape, so we'll work it out. At any rate, she began again, went short on synthetic last time out. That's not what this horse wants to do. This horse is a dirt router. This should be right up her alley, and it helps that she likes Pleasanton. She has 2 starts over this surface. She has a win and a third, so she's my top pick. I also needed to throw in number 6, Missionelle, who is a fun horse to root for. She's 8 years old, 8 wins in 45 starts, a lot of seconds and thirds, just an honest, hard-trying mare. She's never finished worse than third in 3 starts here and comes back to dirt. She wanted no part of the turf last time out. I have no problem drawing a line through that race, and I think she'll be a bit of a price going back to dirt. As I've mentioned, it's a $40 ticket for me. I'm justifying that investment by taking a couple of stands against horses that I think will go favored, and to the shock of precisely none of our long-term viewers. JD and I do not agree at all whatsoever. JD, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm 4-5 here in this sequence, and Crimson Cloud I think is very interesting in this spot because it came out of a protected race, was a waiver claiming race on June 11th at Golden Gate Fields, and I don't think was expected to do much in that race, but had a very strong second. That's the same race that the 1 is coming out of, and the 4 soundly beat the 1 on that day. I do think that's a key thing to look at because that was a protected spot. So you've got 2 ways of looking at it. I really think with the 2 horse that is on none of our tickets, Indian Dancer, I do think that was a protected spot that she was placed in, but it was a shorter distance race that was more of a fitness work. It was just a way to run for purse money, which, again, the horsemen and women went without some purse money for a while. So you get a chance where it's a protected spot. You can get the horse some purse money back to your barn and also improve the fitness. But I don't like Indian Dancer's fit in this race. So, again, none of us have Indian Dancer on our tickets. CIM Sweet, I agree with most of what Chris said there. I almost singled this horse as well. Coming off the long layoff is the one concern, but definitely a good match to the conditions and was really pretty dominant towards the end of last year at Golden Gate. So I am 4-5 in race number 6. As we move to race number 7, and again, this is our first multiple page field here as we've got 10 horses going postward here in the 7th, which is going to be a 12-5 maiden claimer, 3-year-olds and up, going 6 furlongs at Pleasanton as we cycle over to the second set of field graphics here. And Andrew, why don't you lead us off because I don't think you have a strong opinion in this race.
On the contrary, I have a very strong opinion in this race. My strong opinion is anybody can win. Here's the deal. In this maiden claiming event, you have 10 horses. You know how many combined starts this field has on dirt? 5. 5 starts on dirt, and 4 of them came from 1 horse. That's number 10, Mulzoff, who I actually think may have a shot at a big price. There's some back form there in Southern California. The problem is, how do you project which of these horses will and won't like dirt with such little experience, not a lot of pedigree, and not a lot of dirt works on the sheet? I'm buying this race. I'm hoping for a price. It's a fantastic betting race. And if you've got a stand that you want to take with some conviction and you're right, you're going to get paid. I don't have that stand. I think this is, by leaps and bounds, the hardest race in this sequence. And I'm going to sit back, relax, and hopefully get a price home. If that's Mulzoff, great. If it's another price, that's great too. I don't think there's going to be a short-priced favorite in this race. And I think if you catch a price, you've got a chance to knock out a lot of tickets. And that's the name of the game when you're playing pick fours. You don't necessarily need 30 to 1s, 40 to 1s, 50 to 1s. You don't. You just need a couple 8, 10, 12 to 1 shots to knock out some favorites. And that's the ticket I'm playing. Again, it's a $40 ticket. That's more than I usually give out. And the reason I'm doing that is if I'm right, I stand to make a fair amount of money.
I think I see this race one way, and I think actually Chris kind of agrees with me. At least we have the same horses. I don't know if we got there the same way, but Live a Good Life, the 6 is going to be my top pick here. We talked to Jonathan Wong on this podcast, on this very podcast, about the horses he's been getting from Tommytown and how great that relationship has been for improving his barn. And it seems to check all the boxes. Dan was placed in multiple stakes. It was on the turf at Golden Gate in Santa Rosa. 2 wins over the Golden Gate to PETA. I'm not really concerned about the horse on dirt. Second progeny from the horse. The first was Life's Been Good So Far, which was sired by Minister's Wildcat. Broke his maiden at Oaklawn Park in start number 7, but you look at where that horse started first, Los Aldes, Santa Anita, Del Mar, getting to Oaklawn was what that horse needed. And that horse is only ran on dirt, so obviously there's something here deeper in the pedigree that I can't read that just says, okay, we want this horse on dirt. And speaking of that horse, the brother, Life's Been Good So Far, the half brother, he's currently running an allowance company at the only track that is dead to this podcast, which will not be mentioned, but I figured I just wanted to let you know, Andrew. So I am 4-6 in leg number 2, and we'll have to fill Chris in on what that means after the show. But it's a great comedy bit on this show. But Chris, you're forward.
It's a running gag. I'm running.
Yeah, you and I went the same direction in here, and Andrew's going to be rooting for. I mean, you hit the all button, so you're going to be rooting for a 90-1 shot, of course, Andrew. I mean, you can't be rooting for 8-1. You got to root for the 50-1 shot. But and I actually liked Moles Off. I kind of took a look at that one and showed speed at Santa Anita. Class drop, maybe 20-1. It's possible, but yeah, you said it with Jonathan Wong, getting these Tommytown thoroughbred horses. Life is a Stone. I remember that mare when she was running, so that's one to have on the ticket because I think she can fire first time out. Interesting 4 furlong work there, 51-4 out of the gate. Pretty slow pedestrian work there by Boisterous, maybe turf, but we'll just see. Lord Vader is going to be my top choice, the 4. David C. Lopez is going to take over for Julian Couton. David C. Lopez has had a really nice start to the meet. He's getting horses out of the gate. He's putting them on the front end. He's putting them in a position to win. And it just seems like that he might have the winning formula here on the number 4, 3-year-old called By Bold Chieftain. And this is a crazy handicapping angle for me, and it really doesn't really have any kind of formula to it or anything like that. But when horses are not getting bet, and they just seem to run good races, it means that they're a good horse, and it has nothing to do with the odds. And so when you can jump in on them at those right odds, it just seems like they get to the winner's circle. So if you take a look back at the number 4, Lord Vader, he was just over, 12-1, 12.5-1 there in that second lifetime start. 21, 45, 58, finishing 104-4. I just feel like the bettors were ignoring him that day. I think he's a quality horse at this level. I think Lord Vader is going to win. But the 6, Live a Good Life, does make me nervous because it's the first time starter and anything can pop. So I like the 4, Lord Vader, over the 6. Maybe something crazy happens underneath. But Lord Vader, Star Wars fans, let's go, right? Are those allowed? Some Star Wars references? This is more of a wrestling crowd.
And you know what? I'm fine with Star Wars. I'm fine with wrestling.
Big Van Vader versus Lord Vader.
Hey, there was a mini Vader too back when WWF was doing the mini wrestlers. You got to go back a long way, but they're there. And now that we've taken a tangent in the complete wrong direction, we're going to go back to race number 8. This is a starter allowance event. Older fillies and mares going 1 mile and a 16th. Again, the second of 3 dirt routes in this sequence. And I think this is a darn good betting race, because I am trying to beat number 6, Mulhima. Her dirt starts are far worse than her runs on turf and on synthetic. I understand that she ran in a number of big spots back in Dubai for prior connections, but that was a long time ago. This horse has run fairly well on turf and synthetic. Dirt just doesn't seem what this one wants to do. 2-1 on the morning line. I think might go off a little shorter than that, and I'm going to try to beat her in here. My top selection is number 5, Augur or Augur. One of those I hope is right. But at any rate, the 5 horse makes her dirt debut and is bred for it. She's by Tisnow out of an Awesome Again mare. That's dirt distance on top, dirt distance on bottom. And I think she's got enough tactical speed to sit just off the pace. Her 2-back effort at this distance was sharp. I think she sits the trip in this spot. Number 3, Willing to Burn, gets on my ticket. I almost singled the 5 here, but if Willing to Burn repeats the last out effort, I think she's got a big shot. This is the dirt debut, so there are some question marks, but I love the fact that Willing to Burn closed into a race where they went 51 and change for the first half mile on turf. They're going to go faster in here, and I think the faster they go early, the better Willing to Burn figures to like it. I had to throw that horse on the ticket. 3-5 for me in race number 8. JD or Chris, one of you take the baton and run with it.
I'm going to add one more thing on Mulhima. Again, I think Mulhima is probably the best horse in this field. I think Mulhima is going to get bet. I just don't trust Mulhima any means here. I know people are going to look at the past performances and they're going to see Divine Image and they're going to say, ooh, that's a horse I know. And then you're going to look at in the 2 races in Maidan, it was a combined 52 and a quarter lengths defeats for Mulhima. Anton Georgi jumps off this horse, as do I here. I'm going 3 deep with Breakfast Ball, Willing to Burn, and Augur. And I don't have strong opinions in any way here because, again, this is another race where you don't have a lot of dirt form, so you're looking at dirt pedigree, and you're looking at trainers that make the turf to dirt angle work well here. But, in a lot of cases, there's more of a necessity play here. These horses are ready to run. They got their first runs in at Golden Gate. They need to find a spot here. So I'm going 3 deep in. Chris, I know you are going 2 deep here, and you've got 2 of the horses that I have here.
Yeah, scary race here. And if I could spread that ticket, I would, like the all button of glory that Andrew hit. That's be the race.
I can rent it to you if you want.
I mean, the thing is that this looks like they may be crawling on the front end. I mean, there's just not a ton of speed in this race. There's really horses that want to stalk and kind of want to come from off the pace. Azure is how I've heard it pronounced. So the 5, I think, could be one that gets to the front end. I think the 7, Call Me Jesse James, maybe another one that can get to the front end. But I don't know how you guys saw it. I just don't see a ton of speed in here. So I just feel like it's going to be dawdling to the half mile. I think they're going to kind of wait around the far turn. And then it's going to be basically who ends up having the best closing kick in the race. Mulhima, David C. Lopez up for Mike Lenzini, who won 2 on opening weekend. 0 for 4 over the dirt. Those were against much stiffer company there. It's hard. I only went 2 deep because I just wanted to keep this kind of an economic play in that pick 4. But if you are watching this and you wanted to spread a little bit, I feel like this is the leg to spread in. I just feel like you could go a little bit deeper in this race because there's a lot of them that could win. I mean, Billy's got a single. You get the Catman, Catalina Martinez for San Calvario, and yeah, it's coming out of a 12.5, but this is one that has one of the distance and can show a little bit of closing interest. So I think it's going to be a slow half. I think it's going to be a sprint home, and we'll just kind of see how it all balances out when they come to the finish. But I'll go 2 deep. It's not a confident play there, the 2 deep. I could probably spread a little bit more, but I'll go 2 deep here in this leg.
I mean, you've got the budget. We're not going to frown on you if you want to add an extra $6 or $12.
I saw you come with the caveman ticket, so I just wanted to go ahead and keep it a little bit lower. You know what I mean?
I was intimidating. You hear that, JD? You don't know me very well. Anyway, race number 9 is a claiming race for older horses going 1 mile and a 16th. I like this race a lot, and fitting a couple of races here, I think the morning line favorite is extremely beatable. I'm going against number 7, Mansa Gem Pervade. I just prefer others in here. It's not like that one can't win, but I'm going 2 deep, and my top pick is a bit of a price. That's number 4, Dynamite Ride, and this is a pace play for me. Comes back to dirt after 2 tries on synthetic off of a very long layoff. He's got one way of going. Dynamite Ride is going to be the first name you call, Chris, out of the gate, barring some mishap in the starting gate. That horse is going to go and going to go very, very fast. How long he's going to go on the lead, I don't know. But there's not a lot of other early speed in this race. Catalina Martinez, as you mentioned, a very aggressive rider. And if Dynamite Ride gets an easy lead, you're talking 24 and change to the quarter, 49 and change to the half. Maybe Dynamite Ride gets brave, and maybe he finishes this off at a bit of a price. The other horse that I'm going to use, though, is one of my favorites on the Northern California Fair Circuit, a horse that's been kicking around for a while, and that's number 9, Mad Luther, who was a decent third in his first start off the bench, and he's got a lot of back form on dirt. This is a horse that ran 3rd in the Humboldt County Marathon up at Ferndale last year, so one of your favorite races to call, Chris. I know that one. It's a fun race to watch. He beat similar level foes last October over at Fresno, and I think he's going to set a really nice stalking trip in this spot, probably the second choice. So obviously if Dynamite Ride wins, I'll be very, very happy. If Mad Luther wins, I'll still be happy, though. 4-9 for me to finish off a $40 ticket. And as mentioned, in 3 of these spots, I'm leaving the morning line favorite off of my ticket. The only race that has the morning line favorite is the race where I hit the all button, so that tells you what I think of that favorite. I think this is a scenario where there might not be any outrageous prices, but if you're alive into the last leg, you're going to see some really nice will pays.
Yeah, you talk about morning line favorites, and obviously I'm doing the morning line here for the fair circuit and during Pleasanton during these 6 weeks, but it was hard to really zero in on who I felt like was odds on. And I think in the first weekend, I think you could kind of pinpoint who was going to take quite a bit of the action, who's going to take the money. But it starts to come in focus here in this second week, and you start to see who's going to be favored, who's not. But there's competitive races on the card this weekend, and I just felt like that there's some not real strong favorites in some of these spots. So like you say, Andrew, there's opportunities here to get a little bit of a score here when you can get outside of that first or second top choice. I'm going to go to the outside post, and I like Mad Luther, just like you say. Can't believe you brought up the Humboldt County Marathon in 2020.
You realize 2 horses didn't actually compete because they weren't loaded into the gate in that race last year, Andrew. Do you remember that?
I know, I was there.
Well, I was asking if Andrew did. I know you were there, but
I didn't, but I was hoping that one of you would bring up some ridiculous story about that race. It's a quirky race. I love it. There's a story about the jockeys and marbles and spitting them out every time they go around the grandstand. It's a really cool thing. Ferndale on my bucket list. Hopefully can get there next year when fairs reopen back up. But Chris, your ticket, you're going 7, 8, 9, and you were talking about Mad Luther, a horse that I know you've called a fair bit. Just a fun horse to watch and a fun horse to root for.
I know you wanted to get away from the 2019 Humboldt County Marathon. I love that place and I love that race. And yeah, we could do a whole episode on that race. But anyway, Mad Luther is back on dirt, 1 for 6 over the dirt, 3/3. They've tried kind of some different distances with the horse, and I think he'll be in a tactical position here. You do get Wong off the claim. You get Alejandro Gomez now taking over. Johnny Taboada, who's won a lot of races here with these connections, fits in the right spot. I felt like the 8 Sunny spot had to be on the ticket because he just, it's second off the layoff. He showed speed last time. And again, another one that's run here at Pleasanton, 2 starts with that 1 second. I like the horses that have run here at Pleasanton and have shown a little bit of form. That's the one reason why if I was going to add another horse, because I threw Monster Jim Pervade in there, because you got to play Tamayo, you got to play Juno Catan here in this spot on a horse that's earned over $130,000. But Papa Pagosa is one that if you're keen on the Gold Strike super high fives and stuff, this horse loves running during the circuit. 3 starts, 1 win, 1 second. You get Cristobal Herrera, Roger Hansen. Obviously, the horse wants to run on dirt. Hasn't run since Sacramento in the at the California State Fair. They've had some time off. This is the right spot for the horse to come in. And he picks up some of the pieces in there. I don't think he's going to win, but I think he could pick up some of the pieces there in your Gold Strike Super High Fives. It's a jackpot wager, whether you like the jackpot wagers or not, but it's going to be our 9th and final in the program, and one to maybe key on some of the minor legs there in that 2nd or 3rd position there to kind of pick up the pieces. But I think it's 7, 8, 9. I think the winner comes from one of those outside posts, and we'll see. I like Mad Luther off the claim. I think that's a good choice there on top.
I'm going to go 4 deep here, and I've got 3 of the same horses that Chris does on his ticket. What I'm really looking at in terms of race shape is obviously Dynamite Ride, as you mentioned, Andrew, is the fastest horse, but 0 for 13 on dirt, 4 seconds, 3/3. I can't trust that horse to not fade at the end. And what I'm really hoping for my top selection is that Sunny Spot, while I have Sunny Spot on my ticket, gets into a bit of a pace battle, because the horse I actually really like in this race is the Iowa bred Money Can't Buy Me Love, the 6. Now, you look at the record and what this horse does. This horse is a very deep closer. He needs things to go right. But the 2 career wins, I watched both of them back, and I remember them, from Prairie Meadows, and they are 2 of the most dominant performances you're ever going to see from a closer. The maiden score was a 12.5 length victory going 6 furlongs. Figure that one out from a closer. It was in dead last. Just crazy race. And then came back, had a 6.5 length score at 15K, non-winners of 2 lifetime going a mile. I do like the closing kick, and we saw a little bit of it back at Turf Paradise. I don't think this horse liked the Tapeta at Golden Gate, but got some fitness out of it. I do think with this particular race shape at a 20-1 morning line, I really do like Money Can't Buy Me Love to at least get a piece of the action, but I think this is a horse that you have to include on your ticket, because with the pace scenario that could happen in this race, this horse can pass horses late, and at this level, that's the first thing I look for when there's a potential pace duel up front.
Can I just say something that I entirely love about this podcast and how you guys pick selections? That JD was able to say, I remember these races at Prairie Meadows when this horse just inhaled the field, and it was so impressive in a 15 non-winners to 2. I just love that. I think that's just great. That's paying attention to the sport and enjoying watching races and catching this race and hopefully cashing a ticket, right? I mean, if you had the horse that day.
I might have worked at Prairie Meadows when I was in college, so that Altoona has got a little spot in my heart as somebody who went to college in Des Moines. But yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, impressive performance. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to watch it. That August 19th effort, I'm going to go check it out, and maybe you got to play a little money there. I like that.
The faster they go early, the more that horse is going to like it. I'll say that much. Even though I didn't use the horse, that's certainly something that jumps off the page at you in the form, especially if you know what you're looking for and you say, oh, that name looks familiar. So you've got all three of our tickets there on the screen. I'm on the far left, a $40 play for me, an $18 play for Chris, $24 play for JD. Take some of the stuff you like out of our tickets, take some of the stuff you like, whatever. The important thing, get involved. This is a really fun sequence on Saturday at Pleasanton. It starts in race number 6. There's an early pick 4 there as well that we gave serious consideration to spotlighting here. That's a good sequence as well. The late pick 4, though, that gets me going, especially the 3 dirt route races, the big fields. I think there's a chance at a really nice score here. And if you hit it, chances are you're going to be collecting that nice chunk of change. So we're on to our final thoughts segment, and JD, I'm going to yield the floor to you and to Chris first because I would like to close this out, and I would like to announce something that we're doing next week that isn't going to be easy for us, but it might be the most important show that we wind up doing. So JD, Chris, you guys take it away.
I'm going to set kind of the tone here, and because Chris didn't know going into this, Final Thoughts is kind of a free-form segment. If you've got anything on your mind that you want to say, and really for me, I am really hoping still that we can get this Arizona situation figured out. Speaking just for myself, these are my views on this with Monarch, because we're getting to we've passed the 6-month mark on this of being unable to wager on those tracks, and really just coming off of Arizona Downs and the OTB situation, where the OTBs are up and running here in Arizona, and Arizona Downs just wants the fair share and the state law that if you serve a feed to one set of OTBs, you got to serve all. It's the same law that's in California. I'm really hoping that we can finally make some headway here, because we're 6 months in and nothing has happened. And I know Arizona Downs has a horsemen's meeting on Friday to discuss this and some other topics. So if anything pertinent comes from that, I'll be sure to talk about it on Twitter, because as Andrew mentioned, we're going to have a special topic on next week's show. But Chris, anything that you want to discuss or throw out, or any plugs you want to give here in the Final Thoughts segment?
Yeah, for me, it's just really important with obviously no fans and the fair's not going on. There's a lot of people that are hardworking at what we want to do as far as conducting the racing. And so I as Andrew had pointed out with the racing office and the horsemen and everybody involved, let's keep everybody safe and let's keep the racing going. And it's an opportunity for us to be creative in how we bring content. And so I'll continue to do some of the seminars 45 minutes before first post. We run at 2:45 Pacific time. So if you want to catch me on that simulcast signal, I'll just give a quick little seminar and kind of handicapping session to talk about some of the picks for the day. I look forward to that. You can find me at In the Grandstand on Twitter. And just looking forward to bringing more coverage to the folks out there that are following us. I understand how important the betting public is, how important the fans are to our sport, and getting people involved. And so any coverage that I can bring, that's what we're going to do. And we're looking forward to that. And I'll be here for 5 more weeks, and I'll be in California, and everybody wants to shoot me a message or just kind of give me their thoughts on what they would like to see, or if they want to be a part of what we've got going on. I'm happy to do it. And to your listeners, I'm hoping to get some prizes, because we usually give out, Andrew saw us, we're giving out T-shirts and hats and all kinds of different prizes to the fans and the people that were attending the live races. So I'm really trying to work some things out with the fair to try and find out a way to pass out some shirts and hats and whatnot, maybe to give it to you guys here on Champaign and GD, and get it to your listeners and get it to the people that are following us, because we need the betting public, we need the fans to be involved in order for this to be a success. So I know that from being in Texas and being in California and being in Florida and being all over the place. So it's important. We're working hard at it. Appreciate the people following along. Appreciate the people following our action. Thank you for what you guys do, and we're looking forward to it. So 2:45 first post, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays here in Pleasanton.
Pleasanton is one of my favorite places, and to see it back up and running again, it's pretty cool. The Alameda County Fair being canceled for a year, understandable, still a bummer. When the Alameda County Fair is going, it's everything good about horse racing. It's one of the most charming places that I've ever been to, and I'm happy to support it any way that I can. Chris, you and the team are doing a tremendous job at the Alameda County Fair at Pleasanton, keeping racing going, putting on the best program you possibly can under circumstances that are far from ideal. So obviously a pleasure to follow the circuit, pleasure to follow that track and the people that are there. Now, we're going to take a little bit of a turn here. We've got a special guest coming up next week, and it's to discuss something that's gotten a lot of play on social media over the past couple of days from a variety of different people, a variety of different viewpoints, whatever. We are really looking forward to this. Ken Rudolph from TVG will be on the show. It's not necessarily going to be your traditional episode of Champagne and JD. We are going to be talking about diversity in horse racing. We're going to be talking about some of the things that Ken has experienced, ideas Ken's got. And JD, I don't know about you, but I don't anticipate doing a whole heck of a lot of talking on that show. I anticipate doing a lot of listening, a lot of learning, and a lot of being able to provide some insight out there to people on some of the different things that people of color and other underrepresented groups out there have to go through, because it's a case where diversity is paramount. And if everybody is thinking the same way, and if everybody's picking the same talent from the same talent pool, somebody's not doing their job. And that's been driven home in a lot of different ways over the past couple of weeks. And this is something that we're taking as our way of hopefully positively contributing to that conversation. And JD, I know you've got a lot of really cool ideas and things to potentially talk with Ken about. And it's not necessarily going to be an easy conversation, but it's one of the conversations that I think everybody within the industry needs to have. And I'm looking forward to it. I want to learn more about how to be an ally for people that are underrepresented and people that aren't getting a fair shake for reasons they can't control.
Yeah, and really, Ken, outside of horse racing, I mean, Ken's done a lot in his career in broadcasting and acting and a little bit of everything. So he's got a good perspective on not just the horse racing community, but also some other genres. And really, I think it's going to be an interesting conversation because obviously we want to touch on horse racing, but we also want to touch on some of those other areas and things that he's experienced and figure out what we can learn and what we can do better, if there's anything we can do and anything that you guys can do at home in relation to that and diversity in not only horse racing but other aspects of life. So I think it's going to be a really fun conversation. And obviously, Stingers up, Sacramento State. Ken, a proud alum, so happy to have him on the podcast as well. Yeah. Due to that, good Northern California guy, and really excited for next week.
No kidding. I mean, just to give you an illustration here, this is a format sheet from a past episode of Champagne and JD. We don't have one. This is going to be as free-flowing a conversation as we can possibly have, talking about a lot of things that people need to be talking about. So we're going to be filming that next Wednesday, which I believe is July 1st. It is July 1st. And we really hope that you join us for this because this is important, people. And hopefully we can move the sport forward in as positive a way as we can. So we wanted to make sure that we talked about that, got you guys looking forward to it. Again, hit that subscribe button down below so you don't miss any of our weekly content. We've got a lot of past episodes up. Proud to say that we've got a pretty diverse group of people that we've picked from, and we will continue to do so as we attempt to make this show the best it possibly can be. And to you, the viewer, we thank you. Having said that, this week's guest, Chris Griffin, phenomenal guy, one of my favorite people in the game, Chris in the grandstand on Twitter, and it's been really exciting seeing Pleasanton back. I can't harp on that more than I already have.
Yeah, it's been great, guys, and I appreciate what you guys do, and it's great. Thanks for having me as a guest, and we're looking forward to it, and have fun with Ken next time you guys talk, and it's great. Just listen. That's all we got to do.
No kidding.
Yep.
I mean, that's paramount. We got to listen. We got to learn. There's a reason we have 2 ears and 1 mouth.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. And the last thing I'll say on Pleasanton, Andrews waxed a bit, but it reminds me of my childhood. I mean, really, California Fair Circuit's what I grew up, what got me excited about horse racing. It's a unique experience. Unfortunately, we've got fewer tracks than we once did on that circuit, but still, the tracks that are there, support them all you can. Whether normally the meets, Ferndale, Sacramento, the Big Fresno Fair. and obviously Pleasanton and Santa Rosa. So we've got to do what we can to keep what I think is one of the cooler aspects of racing in Northern California alive, and really year-round racing in Northern California. So, Andrew, why don't you handle the catchphrase for this week?
Happy to, especially given a lot of things that have been going on in the world right now. Stay safe. I'm going to add something to it. Wear your masks and stay off the beaches.